What's going on, guys? It's Scott here and welcome back to FudgeMuppet. Today I'm super excited to bring you our newest creation, a brand new Skyrim modded build. This is the Magician, our Charlatan modded build. The Magician may surprise you, as he is prone to do, for he doesn't know the first thing about the arcane arts. No, the Magician is a trickster and a master of the deceptive arts of performance. He can leave your jaw hanging with awe as he orchestrates a pack of rats with his flute, and all the while, he's freeing a hand to grab the purse out of your back pocket. The Magician embodies the wonder of magic, just minus all the actual magic. He's a performer through and through, and if he's a con man, then he's the most talented con man in all of Tamriel. As the unlikely Dragonborn, he can now combine his dexterity and his bottomless bag of tricks with real magic in the form of the Thumb to deal with his foes in utter chaos. But as a man who can climb into a box and simply disappear, he's also no stranger to stealth. In order to make this wacky character possible, we certainly needed the help of some serious mods. We've got the alternate start mod, of course, for role-playing his entry into Skyrim. Then we have the immersive armors mod for his distinct aesthetic. The Imperious Races of Skyrim mod will give him some fresh new racial bonuses. The Andromeda unique Standing Stones of Skyrim mod revitalizes the Standing Stone abilities and powers, and we should note that we are using this instead of the Aurora Standing Stones of Skyrim mod. You can use that instead if you prefer, but we like the effects of Andromeda more for this build. Then finally we have the most important mod, the Ordinator perk overhaul. All mod links can be found in the description just below, along with timestamps to help you navigate throughout the video. But with all that said, let's kick things off with the Magician's race, Standing Stone, and stats. The Magician is an Imperial, and with the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod, this will have the following effects. He'll have 100 base health, Magicka and Stamina, 1% health regen, 3% Magicka regen, 5% Stamina regen, and 300 carry weight. He'll have the Discipline ability, which grants a bonus to armor and attack damage to allies in combat. The Imperial Virtues ability gives a random boost to health, Magicka, or Stamina when entering combat. The Human Spirit allows you to change attributes, resistances, and skills at levels 10, 20, and 30. And finally, after completing 20 quests for the people of Skyrim, he gains the Clovian Star Power, which replenishes the 2 attributes with the highest remaining percentage. As for Standing Stones, we'll be taking the Thief Stone. Thanks to the Andromeda Standing Stones mod, this means he will have the Ambush and Thief Path abilities. The first makes sneaking and sneak attacks 10% better, while the second allows you to choose 2 thief skills which can be changed during sleep. These 2 skills that you choose will level 20% faster. The Magician's stat spread will be 70% health and 30% stamina, even though he will avoid combat much of the time, summoning automatons to take the brunt of the damage and performing when he needs to put foes in a trance. He still has no armor rating, and having solid health will be very important to avoid getting seriously punished for any mistakes. 30% stamina should be more than enough for rolling and power attacking. The Magician was born to the thumping sound of wagon wheels rolling over rocks and dirt mounds, and the drummer who delivered him claimed the bumping of the cart was good for a smooth birth. The Magician's father would have been present in the back of the wagon for the birth, but he was the one driving the cart, as the travelling troupe of musicians were very late for a show outside the walls of Skingrad. The Magician was the son of 2 wandering bards, and along with a pair of drummers, a flutist, and some singers, they were what his father would call the greatest performers in all of Tamriel. The Magician grew up around all kinds of interesting characters. His family, other than his mother and father, were the musicians, and on the road they taught him to read, to write, and most importantly to play. As a youth, he played the flute with the band, sticking to the back of the stage, allowing his father, the lutist, and his mother, the lead singer, to occupy front and center. As far as artists are concerned, the traveling troupe made an ample living, and the Magician didn't want for much. He had all the toys and gadgets he could want, and was outgoing enough to be quite the entertainer. He wondered what it would be like to have a home that wasn't constantly in motion, but it didn't bother him too much. Perhaps a home devoid of turbulence of the road would give him a lack of motion sickness anyway. The Magician found that the greatest part of the bard's lifestyle was the characters you met on the road. He'd seen them all: snake charmers hailing from Stros Mackay, contortionists from all over elsewhere, dagger jugglers, and even experts on Dwemer mechanisms from Morrowind and Skyrim. Each vagrant who bought passage on their wagon taught the young Magician a little more. He didn't know the histories of Tamriel and every emperor to grace the land of Cyrodiil like most imperial children, but he was more cultured than many full-grown adults. When the magician turned 18, he decided it was time to start his own traveling business. He enjoyed playing the flute, but there were so many other ways to entertain the masses, and there were always enough overburdened nobles looking to splurge some coin, and so the magician bought his own wagon. This one was smaller and more suitable for one inhabitant. The carriage was large enough to serve as his dressing room, and there was plenty of storage space. There was even a handy stage built into the side of the wagon so he could burst out of his carriage like a jack-in-the-box when the time came to thrill and astonish his spectators. His carriage was chock full of tricks, and he would usually start each show with one of his prized possessions, a Dwemer spider given to him by a Dwemer expert years before. He had tinkered with it to make it follow a pre-chosen path. It would crawl atop the carriage and fire a jolt of electricity into the air. When the spectators shot their glances at the sky and let out a bewildered gasp, the stage would flip down from the side of his carriage, and when their eyes turned, there he would be standing. In the early stages of his performance, he would usually show off his talents with the flute, using rats he'd spent months training the way snake charmers train their snakes, making them strut from side to side and sync with the tune. When he wanted to give the crowd a shock, he would put on his feathered cloak, concealing his form within its folds, and then, with a whoosh, he would open it and a dozen pigeons would flap their wings and fly through the crowd. When he first started training those pesky winged rats, they'd left droppings everywhere, causing a handful of nobles in muck-stained robes to chase him out of town, but now he had taught the birds better and would ensure they'd all done their business in advance of the show. Nobody spoke of the dirty side of the performance arts, but the magician thought that was for the best. Nothing takes the magic out of the magician like watching him clean up bird shit. His favourite way to end a show was by revealing his giant man-sized lockbox. He would place it atop the wagon, and then he would climb in, activating the latches with a satisfying click. From within the box, he could easily open the trapdoor, dropping into his carriage and using the mechanism to open the box from the outside. As far as the onlookers could see, he got in, and then the box broke open and splayed out flat with no magician inside. The business made the magician quite a lot of coin, but the most lucrative part of the endeavour was the merchandise. Excited commoners and intrigued nobles would come to the wagon to look at his wares. He sold small contraptions which he had designed to look like Dwemer mechanisms, only made from cheap materials and lacking any of the real use. And he also sold waters he had enhanced with food-based dyes to look like mystical elixirs. The label and the magician claimed that these elixirs would give the consumer some of the powers he himself had, like the ability to teleport out of confined spaces, but the print was clear. Effects may vary from person to person. The magician rationalized this misleading marketing to himself due to the potency of placebo. One can achieve much with a little bit of belief, after all. The problems arose when the more savvy customers began to question the legitimacy of his goods. One local lord in the West Weald bought a bright red elixir for his son due to its supposed healing properties. It wasn't the magician's fault that the elixir couldn't magically return the boy the use of his legs, but nevertheless, the lord kicked up a fuss, and the magician was required to compensate the slighted lord, and his reputation was ruined, preventing him from going about his business in many of Cyrodiil's western cities. With his credibility a little worse for wear, he decided it was time to move on, so he set his sights on Skyrim. That sorry bunch could use some entertainment given the turmoil the province was in recently. Reluctantly, in order to get passage from Anvil's docks to Skyrim and pay off his debt to the Westweald Lord, he sold his wagon, but he could easily buy a new one when he docked in the glorious city of Solitude. Upon his arrival in Skyrim, the magician will be motivated to get his business back up and running. He will strive to make money, selling goods and performing for coin. The realization that of all people, he is the Dragonborn will flip a lot of his plans on their heads for a little while, but eventually he will embrace the power of the thumb, seeing those new abilities as essentially new tricks. Only that with these tricks there is no deceit or legerdemain involved. It is actually him using ancient magic. Maybe now if anyone is skeptical of him, he can burn off their eyebrows with a word of fire breath. Regardless of the trials and tribulations Skyrim thrusts his way, the magician will be interested primarily in making money, and he tricks, scams, and lies his ways to riches. Even though he likes money, he isn't going to gain it by being totally evil. He's not going to kill innocent people just to empty their pockets, and he won't take from the poor. As for factions, the main story and Dragonborn DLC are definitely on the cards for the reasons I gave just before. The Dawn Guard is also an option, siding with the Dawn Guard, and the Thieves Guild is a given. His skill set is perfect for getting into their ranks. The Bard's College is also perfect for the Magician, though he's skeptical that there's anything an institute could teach him that he wouldn't have already learned in practice from years and years on the road, but he can humour them. To the Magician, a feat like becoming the Archmage at the College of Winterhold could be the ultimate scam. He knows next to nothing about real magic, but he's so confident in his trickery that he could even fool those uppity mages. You could use your Dragonborn status as your credentials for entry, then use scrolls whenever you're required to cast spells. I haven't actually tried becoming the Archmage without knowing any real spells myself, but I thought it would be a cool idea that some people would appreciate. But now that we have the Magician's backstory, role-playing and factions sorted, let's get into how that will determine his skills, shouts, perks, and his overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be one-handed, sneak, lockpicking, and speech. The Magician, funnily enough, will not be using any spells, however he will use shouts. In your travels, you'll want to learn a variety of useful shouts, including Become Ethereal, Bend Will, Cyclone, Disarm, Elemental Fury, Fire Breath, Ice Form, Unrelenting Force, and even Throw Voice if you'd like. All of these shouts suit the trickery stage magic theme, and they'll act as his real magical powers. With the addition of modded racial and standing stone effects, we'll also have some extra powers at our disposal. As an Imperial, the Magician will have the Human Spirit power, which allows you to change your attributes, resistances, and skills at levels 10, 20, and 30. Then there's Clovian Star, which allows you to replenish 2 of your attributes with the highest remaining percentage once per day. The Standing Stone power to use along with your shouts is called Thief's Path, which allows you to learn 2 thief skills of your choice 20% faster. You can alter the 2 skills when you sleep, but with all that said, let's jump into the Magician's essential perks to take from each skill. First, we have one-handed, and while the Magician was never a trained fighter, there's no questioning his dexterity after the countless tricks he carried out on awestruck audiences. His coordination was proved by his tinkering skills, his mastery of the flute, and he even met dagger jugglers who were able to show him a thing or two. From the one-handed skill tree, take one-handed mastery 2 of 2, furious strength, bite marks 3 of 3, savage 2 of 2, and twin fang. This is all pretty standard fare. The series of perks starting with bite marks all bolster your effectiveness with the dagger, and bite marks will bring bleed damage into the mix. There are many renowned thieves throughout history in Tamriel, so many in fact that it seems ironic. Is notoriety really a thing to be praised for a thief? Nevertheless, very few of the continent's greatest thieves can boast the ability to enter a confined space only to vanish when their pursuer checks the spot. Trickery is all about taking advantage of what the subject cannot see. Distractions and decoys work well, hell, even tripwires and daggers when the circumstances are particularly dire. Either way, the Magician is a trickster, and a sneaky one at that. From the sneak skill tree, take Sneak Mastery 2 of 2, Spot Detection, Lightfoot, Tripwire, Whiplash, Backup Plan, Silent Roll, Dynamic Entry, Dodge Roll, Grease Lightning, Infiltrator right behind you, Clean Escape, Smoke Screen, Party Starter behind enemy lines, Shadow Warrior, Sneak Attack, Assassin's Blade, Backstab 2 of 2, Problem Solver, and Laughing Ghost. With Tripwire, you'll have the unique ability to place a tripwire in front of you for 120 seconds. Once triggered, all targets are knocked to the floor. With Whiplash, the tripwire will remove 1,000 points of armor from foes for 5 seconds, and with Backup Plan, you will automatically drop a tripwire if you've been outside of combat for 5 seconds and enter combat. Another handy ability comes from Grease Lightning, which gives you a hidden bottle of grease. With this, you will automatically leave a trail of grease wherever you silent roll in combat. This lasts for 10 seconds, staggering running enemies and knocks sprinting enemies to the ground. Clean Escape is pretty fitting for the Magician, as enemies within 150 feet will stop searching for you if you stand still, sneaking for 8 seconds. With Smokescreen, you gain the power to create a 35-foot cloud of smoke once a day. This lasts 180 seconds and blinds those within its reach. Sneak attacks in the smoke are 50% more powerful. Shadow Warrior and Party Starter make for a good combo, as the former gives you 2 seconds of invisibility when crouching in combat, and Party Starter drops a barrel of flammable booze when the invisibility is triggered. When you leave invisibility, it will explode for fire damage equal to 200% of your sneak skill. Finally, the Laughing Ghost perk adds a power of the same name, which allows you to teleport through the shadows right behind a target to attempt a sneak power attack for double sneak damage. The target must be out of combat, so it's purely for sneaking purposes. Much like Sneak, lockpicking is another thief skill that aligns perfectly with the talents of a trickster. The Magician has plenty of experience with intricate Dwemer mechanisms, and the average lockbox is nothing compared to one of those ancient contraptions. From the lockpicking skill tree, grab Lockpicking Mastery Mastery 2 of 2, Lockdown, Hotwire, Percussive Maintenance, Whacked Key, Locksmith, and seen this before. With Lockdown, you can pick into hostile automatons and shut them down. With Hotwire, you can pick into them to fight alongside you, and with Percussive Maintenance, your automaton companion will move 30% faster, attack 20% faster, and you can repair it by 150 points and a bonus of 50% attack speed for 10 seconds by whacking it with a mace or a warhammer. Finally, we have the skill that is essential for putting on a stellar show, entertaining the masses and capturing the attention of the people for long enough to sell them a bunch of merchandise they absolutely do not need. I'm of course talking about speech. From the speech skill tree, go for Speech Mastery 2 of 2, Kinship, Salesman, Investor, Fence, Trade Prince, Performer, Serenade, Irresistible Dance, Encore, Golden Fiddle, Lord of the Dance, and the Universe Listens, Windborne, Hurricane Force, Force Redoubled 2 of 2, Thumb of War, Merciless Storm, and Dover Zulan. With Performer, you will gain the unique power to perform a song for up to 5 people within 50 feet, collecting a donation from each of them based on your speech and the gold they carry. With Serenade, performing to the opposite sex will double your income. With Irresistible Dance, you can perform it in combat, so the 2 nearest enemies will dance spellbound, preventing them from acting and dropping their armor skills by 50 levels. With Encore, you can perform multiple times per day, and with Lord of the Dance, the nearest 2 by enemies turn into the 5 nearest enemies. The next branch, starting with the Universe Listens, will significantly improve your shouting. Thumb of War makes your shouts powerful enough to stagger nearby foes, reducing their armor by 300 points for 10 seconds and knocking enemies with less than 25% health to the ground. The Merciless Storm power allows you to cancel a shout cooldown once per day. And finally, Dover Zulan, after using Merciless Storm, your previous shout is used in tandem with your next shout. With all of this in mind, let's quickly run over the Magician's playstyle. In combat, you'll use stealth to kill with your dagger using all of your trinkets, like tripwires, smoke bombs, booze barrels, grease bottles, and automatons to your advantage. When combat kicks off, Shadow Warrior and the Party Starter perk combo will get things started with a bang. With stealth set aside, you can start using shouts and performances. Using the Ethereal Staff is the cherry on the cake for conjuring up tricks. Overall, you'll kill with your dagger while sneaking for serious multipliers and bring out your bag of tricks, displaying a myriad of abilities, powers, and shouts. Outside of combat, you'll make money by plundering, thieving, and performing. As for gear, the Magician will wear the Dwarven Mage unarmored robe, hood, gauntlets, and boots. You can find these on enemies. This is the performance outfit and fits well as he is fond of the Dwemer design. In terms of weapons, a glass dagger is great for quick kills and even juggling in shows. Then we'll use the Ethereal Staff to summon Dwarven spiders and spheres. And there you have it, guys. Subscribe to FudgeMuppet if you're new in town, and don't forget to give the video a like if you think it deserves one. Don't forget that the mod list, as well as timestamps to help you navigate the video, can be found down in the description below. As always, thanks for watching. My name is Scott, and I will be back to nerd out with you again next time.